large hanging scroll in the old Freer collection, a large painting representing one of the 8 views of the Shaoxiang region, Autumn Moon on Lake Dongting. Freer acquired it in 1919 from a Shanghai collector dealer. We rediscovered it while I was still at the Freer as a curator, and I think I had it remounted. My memory is unclear. But I left the Freer staff without really writing it up or publishing it. It's no less than 190 centimeters in height, almost 2 meters, and 109 centimeters wide, over a meter. And it bears Xiaogui's signature, taking the form Chun Xiaogui Zhi, or your subject Xiaogui made this, written on the leftmost tree, not visible in these images. The poem, which as I say is one of the 8 views of the Shaoxiang series, I'll speak of them more in the last lecture, is inscribed in large characters at the top by some unidentified imperial hand. This was presumably one of the 8 large hanging scrolls painted by Xiaogui as a court artist, and one that happens to survive. It bears collector's seals of Xiang Yuanbian and others. The poem written at the top reads, as translated in the Freer website, Autumn Moon on Lake Dongting. Oranges fragrant from every shore, green and yellow, emerge. I moor my boat at dusk beside a shack of sticks and thorns. Mid surging waves, the lovely moon is like a winsome maid who playfully seems to vaunt, I think they mean to flaunt, her graceful feminine charms. In the deep of night, when no clouds obscure the Milky Way, lofty winds then skim the surface, ruffling its whiteness. 5 o'clock, and somewhere far off a painted horn is blowing. When I am dressed and go to work, the golden bowl has sunk. I suppose that last line means that the moon is set. Anyway, the painting seems entirely believable as a major surviving work by Xiaogui. The trees are his, and the huge rocky mass jutting out from the shore. It's on very dark silk, so it's hard to see. The Mounter Sugiyota once showed me how he could, if we wanted, lighten the silk of an old painting chemically, but that has some dangers too. Anyway. All right, next please. Another surviving hanging scroll by Xiaogui that's probably genuine, but that I can only call to your attention with this old slide made from a reproduction. I have no images from the original. Is this landscape with drying nets in the old collection of the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. They acquired it in 1914. I note in my index that it is much retouched and exists also in other versions, but my distant memory is of finding it in fine and convincing work when I saw it in the original years ago. Next, please. This one in the Metropolitan Museum of Art is a large album leaf, about 25 centimeters in height by 21 centimeters in width. It was acquired for the Met from John Ferguson in 1914. It bears a Xiaogui signature on the middle right edge. My memory is of doubting it in old days, but Wenfong in his Beyond Representations book, page 177, takes it to be a genuine work and reads it as a representation of mountain market in clearing mist, another of the 8 views of the Shaoxiang region. Although I don't think he's right about the subject, he may be right about the authenticity of the painting. It has a lot to recommend it as a real Xiaogui, featuring an original composition and strongly rendered forms. The subject is really of the type, I think, of which we saw several examples in our lecture on followers of Li Tang, in which the road enters in the lower left corner over a bridge on which we see 2 travelers, or a traveler and a servant, making their way toward the village or resting place on the rocky knoll among groves of leafy trees. That's the central focus of the composition. The road continues, and the continuation of their journey after their rest or overnight stop in the lower right, going around a bluff and disappearing above to the right. So in that respect, the composition is familiar and conventional. But Xiaogui, if it is indeed he, reinvents it, makes it fresh with his own distinctive forms. The tree groves have the right depth and naturalness. The rocks have the striking volumetric treatment that we expect of Xiaogui's rocky masses. All in all, I'm inclined to revise my old judgment and include this among the works to be taken seriously as really from the hand of the master. Next, please. Here is a pair of hanging scrolls from the Japanese catalog of Southern Shung painting, then in some Japanese collection. More recently, if my memory is right, they have gone through auction. They bear an absurd attribution to Mio Run, of all people, an artist who couldn't have painted this way if he wanted to, which he didn't. The attribution reflects only the practice of attaching the names of famous literati artists, such as Li Gonglin and Mio Run, to old and fine paintings that are really quite beyond their powers. These two paintings appear to me from the reproductions to be the work of some follower of Shaogui. They resemble in some features the Koto in landscapes, wrongly ascribed to Li Tang, which we have seen already in this lecture. Fine, spacious paintings as they are, note the skillful depiction of the path that winds through the trees in the one at left, ending at the water's edge. They raise once more the question of Shaogui's following and why it's so hard to identify, a problem I'll return to later. To the purchaser of these, if she or he sees this lecture, I say, if you bought them as Mio Run paintings, you got better than you deserve. If you bought them as fine late Sung works in the Shaogui manner, congratulations, you have a good eye. Next, please. Now on to album leaves ascribed to Shaogui, beginning with these two fan paintings, both in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, both published in Wenfeng's book, from which I took these images. Neither of them is presented there, by the way, as a genuine Shaogui. The one at left presents thatched houses and bamboo beneath leafy trees on the shore. In the one at right, the traveler by river or canal has alighted on the shore and walks on, leaving the boatman and his boy helper in the boat. Both seem to me to fall into the category of what I would call almost Shaoguis. I won't go on to point out the features of style that keep them from being real Shaoguis, because sharp-eyed viewers, the ones I'm principally addressing in these lectures, can spot them by now. But it's worth noting how many Shaogui and would-be Shaogui paintings are in old American collections. The early collectors were influenced, as indeed they should have been, by the Japanese passion for Ma Yuan and Shaogui, which they knew of partly from Fenelos's book, where they appear as Ba En and Kake, and partly from the dealers and Asian collectors that they dealt with. And they were eagerly seeking out their works. It was only later that more advanced scholarship, as it considered itself to be, scoffed at this passion for the Ma Xia style and worked to turn collectors' attention to acquisitions of works by more prestigious masters. Next, please. Another fan-shaped leaf, which I show in two images, both made from reproductions, is this signed Shaogui fan painting in the Palace Museum in Beijing, number 47 in the big volume of 100 Sung album leaves. This one, by contrast, seems to me probably the real thing. I'm deliberately alternating good and bad to keep your eyes tuned. A road comes around the bluff in lower left, where the signature is, small and convincing, to continue over a simple bridge and then disappear behind large rocks, from which leafy trees grow. The road emerges at the right of these, and on it a solitary figure, a man bent with age and fatigue, walking with a staff, approaching his longed-for destination, houses on the shore. Another moving image of lateness and return. Note the richly varied foliage of the trees, and the way the groups of them are given depth by varying ink tone. Note also the glimpse we are given by the artist of a further bank in lower right, and a stream that flows into the larger watercourse. This is a sensitive, space-creating Shaogui touch. The seals of the best collectors confirm our judgment. I wish I had good original slides and details of this one. Okay, next please. For a change of subject, but still a painting with an attribution to Shaogui, here's a picture of a gibbon hanging from a tree branch that projects out over the water. I believe I saw and photographed it in the collection of Chengchi. It was acquired by the Cleveland Museum of Art, and it's in the 8 Dynasties catalog as number 59, with an entry written by Howard Rogers, who, understandably enough, would like to accept the attribution. I used to complain that too much of the writing in our field was done for exhibition and collection catalogs, for which the authors are inclined to give the paintings the benefit of the doubt. What we need, I argued, was more independent judgment by people with no interest in the paintings beyond the scholarly. It's entirely possible, of course, that Chagoué would have painted such a picture outside his ordinary range of subjects. Next, please. But the signature at right, seen in this detail, doesn't appear to read Chagoué, but rather Shalin, the latter written with 2 trees. Chagoué is recorded as having had a painter's son named Shashan, written with 3 trees, and one theory is that this was another son. The painting of the cliff seen in this detail doesn't look like it came from the hand of Chagoué, rather from some lesser academician. Next. The gibbon also looks like the work of a good but not extraordinary master. One would like to think that Chagoué, if he had decided to paint a gibbon, would have given us a more distinctive one. The long arms are stiff, the face doesn't hold our attention as it should.